Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Automation Face-Off, a panel discussion. Oh, how about that? Is that better?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you.
I feel like that Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Awesome. Welcome to our panel. I am Chris Loader. I'm a QA automation manager. Been doing automation now for a long time. I would like our panelists to introduce themselves before we get started here today. We'll start down with Christopher.
Hey, my name is Christopher Nordstrom. I'm from Sweden, and apparently I'm an evil genius.
I love it.
What's up, people? I'm Andy Knight. I'm the Automation Panda.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Hajar Ben Musa. I am an IT trainer / test automation engineer. Welcome, everyone. I don't have anyone.
Oh, she stands alone. She's perfect as she is.
Yes. Everybody's scared of me. Let me just say why. I'm a boxer. That's why.
You noticed how she asserted dominance immediately in the room? That's Hajar for you.
So we're just all going to put our mics down, and whatever she says goes.
Girls power. That's how it goes.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We have a few questions to start. If anybody has a question they would like the panel to ask, please just raise your hand. We have some that we will start off with. Of course, the big one, which is the one that's on the board and in the description. Let's all talk about AI.
Ooh,
All right.
AI.
not a controversial topic at all.
Not at all. Let's start with, is it good or bad? And is it going to replace us as automation and or testers?
I think it's awesome, scary, dangerous, and no way it's going to replace us. It's simply going to make us more efficient as testers, I believe. Counterpoint.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you, and I will go even further. It's not about replacing us or anything on that field. It's more of we need to embrace it. You know, there's a saying of we need to adopt it and adapt to it. And how can we adapt to it? It's more of thinking of how it can help us be better QA. It's going to be more of let's change our tasks, maybe, but replacing us, I cannot see that. We will always need human beings to navigate through softwares, right?
Whatever form it takes. Andy?
I think it's going to replace some of us.
That was the exact line I was about.
Oh, I stole it.
No, I think, we've been through this over and over again. I mean, we can go back as far as, the automotive car being invented.
Yes.
When we have, horses and buggies, and you had drivers. And they were terrified. They were going to be replaced by this new automobile thing, right? What happened? We still have drivers. The only thing that happened is that those drivers, they needed to upskill. They needed to adapt, change their role maybe. But hey, no scooping of manure anymore. You get to sit in a.
Challenge that.
All right, go ahead.
No, I have horses, so I scoop it over on a regular day.
Yeah. Okay. That's because you don't drive a car. So, but yeah, you get a nicer work environment, air conditioned these days, and I just think that AI is going to revolutionize things for sure, and it already is. And I think a lot of, if not almost everyone in here, is using AI on a daily basis now. I am, but it doesn't replace me as a tester.
Correct.
It just complements my skill. I'm still the driver. I'm still the one thinking up what do I want you to do. I'm feeding it the context. I'm giving it the background. I'm pasting in Slack threads, etc., etc. So I don't think it's going to replace us. It's just going to change what we do. Sorry, Andrew, I cut in there.
It's okay.
To add to Andrew, I agree. I think some will be replaced because some jobs we will no longer need. If I stop and date myself here, I went to school to fix TVs and VCRs. I challenge you to find a VCR today that needs fixing. You have to adapt, and I think that's what AI will force us to do, is we will all adapt. The type of testing we do, the type of automation, that will change, but it still has to be done, and we have to do it.
Do you see any concrete roles or examples of things that are going to be replaced?
Well, I would go that far that as QA, manual testers, I personally don't believe that they will be replaced. Now, test automation, we might need to, as I said, adopt the whole, AI as a form that's going to help us be better, test automation engineers, but replacing us as a whole, I do not believe that even test automation engineers with their writing their scripts and things like that, you would always need somebody that would check, because believe it or not, it's never 100% correct or accurate, whatever ChatGPT gives us or any AI tool. So you're always going to need somebody that's going to check what's going to be out there. And Christopher, I want to actually ask you, or go with what you were saying with the dangerous part. That's also something that we need to take into consideration, and the fact that we will not be replaced, because you're always going to have to check the security part, right? Anything that an AI machine or tool is going to bring out there, we human beings need to always keep an eye on that. I'll give an example with, data. You cannot allow any AI tool to get into any company that has data secured to be out there without having a human being checking what's going on with that. So yes, it is dangerous, and I again believe that we will not be replaced. It's just that we're going to have to change the tasks that we have been doing so far, just different. With the VCR, we have now things that are being done, but
all
you
digital.
always need the entertainment, right? It's just different, just different. Andrew, I would love to hear your opinion on this one.
Bring it home, Andrew.
Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me wonders, like, when I look at how things have gone in software, manual testing is like the easiest thing to do, because you just need a person with common sense in front of whatever the thing you're testing.
Excuse me.
It's not the most.
Okay,
not.
I'm just gonna
Well,
step over
let me
here.
walk that back a little bit. I'm not trying to be condescending, but it's like, in terms of the types of testing, like if you go to test something, the most basic thing is to have a manual tester sit in front of the thing. Well, not even a manual. You have a person sit in front of the thing, do manual testing. They click through it, they scrape, they whatever, right? Is categorically more complex to have what we consider test automation today, because you need extra tools and stuff in place to make that happen. And what we've seen historically is there's this gap, this divide between the manual testing and the automation, right? That it exists, right? Why? Because automation is inherently more complex than just one person on the screen doing the stuff. That's what I meant by simpler. Not that it's like anybody can do it, but it's like,
More accessible.
yes. And so it's like an entry point. Where you start is human interaction, and then it goes up to automation. And what we see with AI is like that's another level of complexity, right? And as well as cost, right? It's not easy to build these models, and it's not cheap to do that either. And so it's like, I think for a while AI, once it actually gets really good, is going to be a pay-to-win kind of thing. So now it becomes more of a business prop of like, okay, well, I can hire people or ask the engineers we already have to just spend some of their time manual testing. Maybe we're not going to pursue the higher levels of testing with automation or AI-based automation, and maybe that's how something sticks around. I don't know.
Yes.
I have a question for the next round of questions.
Speak up.
Are we ready?
Not yet.
All right.
Hold on. I just want to ask Andy what he means by pay to win for AI.
Pay to win. So like, I think right now it would be pretty tough if you were on at some random company on some random test team to be building your own models to do something like visual testing, or to try to figure out how to generate test scripts automatically. I see that as more of like what the vendors in the expo hall are trying to do and make a business model out of that, and they'll do it in mass and big and with investment, and then they'll sell it to companies as a service.
Gotcha.
Right? I don't see your rank and file tester like saying, I'm going to make an LLM to go generate tests for me. I don't foresee that anytime soon. Maybe it'll come to pass eventually. And so it then becomes this business prop of like, okay, well, these bigger companies out there have done it. They've burned I don't know how much carbon and how much compute time to generate the models, and they actually do the things that AI promises us to do, right? And their whole pitch is, well, we'll do it big and we'll do it quote unquote right, and then we'll sell it to you as a service. And so certain companies can choose to pay for that service to win in the sense of, okay, we'll get the better technologies.
Thank you.
That leads beautifully into my question, which is, we're kind of automation face-off here. So one of the core questions that a lot of automation engineers face is, do I build my own tool or do I buy a tool?
Oh,
Are we talking about AI or tools in general right now?
Tools in general.
You build it yourself.
Build it yourself.
You roll
Always,
up the
always,
sleeve
always
and you
build.
build it yourself.
So the question for those online, in case you didn't hear it, is, please correct me if I'm wrong, tools and tool sets. Is it better to build your own or
And like I was saying, tongue in cheek, you build it yourself. Now, of course, I'm not going to do assembly programming. I'm not going to flip the ones and zeros. I'm going to build on something that's already been built, an OS, a library, a framework. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that whatever tool I'm using has to give me enough freedom to customize it, to enhance it, or to build on it. Like, for instance, I'm teaching Python for testers, and one tool that I use when I do performance testing is Locust. It's open source, it is in Python, and that means that I get an awesome performance test framework out of the box that takes care of a lot of the things for me. But at the same time, I can tap into the whole Python ecosystem with third-party modules, import stuff, and I can just tweak this to my heart content. And I can build it for myself, for my specific needs. Whereas if an open source tool or a commercial tool, they need to appeal to the broad masses. They need to expect to sell this to not only 10, but maybe hundreds of customers. So it needs to be both flexible, but they also need to make decisions and limit what it can do. Whereas I can custom make my tool to exactly what I need.
so to actually go with what Christopher is saying, I agree with building your own is better. But again, sometimes you just need to start somewhere. And I've heard of a lot of companies where, they have testers who are interested in automation and they're like, okay, we need to start somewhere. So an open source type of tool to start up is probably a good idea. So I would say it depends on the company.
if you have the skill set?
If you have the skill set, obviously you will have to go through maybe a learning curve at a point, but at the same time, getting companies to adopt the whole test automation may be too challenging to see it as well. We have to build something from the get-go as well. Let's try it with an open source tool and see how it goes. So it's it depends on where we are, the maturity of the company, and how what type of company and the context and all that stuff. But starting somewhere maybe with an open source just to see how it goes, and then building up to a tool that's more specific to your company, I think I'm more on that safer side.
And I just want to add before, and I know Andrew's going to pick up on this. I mean, obviously, I would never write my own end-to-end web test framework at this point. There are good tools out there. There's Cypress, which has been around for a long time, which now is being, I guess, more and more replaced by Playwright. Why on earth would I invest time building that when it's out there? But I want the ability to customize and adapt it. And
Yes.
Why I build it? Because I know my system, my environment much better than any other tool out there.
Yeah.
So I've had no choice but to customize mine and build my own end-to-end.
it's a good point.
Yes, that is.
Andy?
I want to carefully define the word tool because
you.
I hear, well, you should build your own tool, but I use all these other tools off the shelf. What?
That's a good point.
When I hear the word tool, I think of something that is built to do a very specific task or function. So like maybe Cypress or Playwright could be a tool in the sense that this is the package through which I can program my tests and I can have the runner to execute them. I could have something like a visual testing tool that does visual diffs between snapshots, various points in my app. I could have a performance load or testing tool, like you mentioned Locust. Locust is awesome. Python is awesome. Locust is awesome. PyTest is awesome. I just have to plug that if you know me.
It's okay.
But like, okay, Locust, that can be a tool for performance and load testing, right? Personally, I don't want to be, if I am on a project where I am charged with the goal of quality and building and executing and maintaining the tests, I don't want to be in the business, if that's my role, of building tools. I want to be in the business of building the project. I'm going to use tools to build the testing project.
Yes.
And that's going to involve the strategy, that's going to involve the exploratory testing with it, that's going to involve the test automation, that's going to be built using a lot of the tools we just mentioned.
Mhm.
And so I want to be careful about the words that we use when we say, should I build or buy the tool? Like, I'm not going to rebuild PyTest. I'm not going to rebuild Playwright, right? But I'm going to write tests using these things. And that's the project that I'm going to build.
Agreed. Yes, good point.
But ultimately, it boils down, I think, to what you have on hand. I sat with a lady at Star East. Her team has no choice but to move to automation, and none of them have the skill set to do any programming whatsoever. So they had no choice. They bought a low-code automation tool, and that's what's working for them, right? So I think ultimately it boils down to you need to have a hard look at what you need and what will work for you, your products, your environment, and your team.
Right. So again, we go back to the needs of the company and what are we working with, right?
Yes.
The skills are important, obviously. It's just like Andy said, if I'm going to be recreating or reinventing the wheel, you're going to waste a lot of time, and time is of the essence sometimes. So depending on the needs, again, and the skills, I
Yeah,
think
and,
that's-
and like you said, what we have. And what we have is not limited to the people or the skills. It's also what amount of time do we have to do this?
Right.
What budget do we have to do this? All of these things tie into it. What risk appetite do we have for this project here? All of this goes into what we call the context as testers, and makes us do these decisions. And they're going to be unique for every place, I think. There's going to
I
be
agree.
patterns
Right.
that keep reoccurring, but you need to look within your organization. So
correct.
Cool.
I can just keep asking questions.
We
Have
have
at
some,
it.
but if you want to ask a question, does anybody else have a question before we let Jenna go a second time?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what advice or guidance do you guys have where, in the case you have started with a low-code or no-code tool, but then you don't have a staff to actually be able to write an in-house automation? Like, is it really just like scrap it and start over, or are there?
Can I take this one?
go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead,
It's all
Andy.
yours.
Ah,
Yes.
If you have started with a low code solution and your company or your team is now big enough and staffed enough to be able to start writing better automation from in-house, is it just a matter of scrapping, or is there a better roadmap from low code to in-house?
All right, Andy.
I know I have my idea, but I'll let
Yeah.
Andy go first.
Thank you. This is a situation where I like to think about the line in the sand we draw. Y'all built up a project. It had tests. Clearly, you got some level of value out of it, and it's probably still delivering some value out of it because you can still run it in some sense, and it has coverage, right? I don't think one should just scrap it and move on, but rather draw the line in the sand to say these were the tests we had in this project, and we will use them as long as they are still useful. But all new things will go into the new project that is somehow, by some determination, to be better, right? And so when you go sprint by sprint, iteration by iteration, whatever you want to call it, oh, we have to add new tests to automate. Okay, they go in the new project, right? And so over time, what happens is your new project builds up. And what you'll also find over time is that as things break in the old project, or maybe there's features that are no longer applicable, you can scrap those tests. And maybe, oh, this test is really flaky in this project. Well, let's either scrap it entirely, just that one test, or we'll rewrite it in the new project. And so the old project goes down as the new project comes up. And then there's a tipping point at which you say, we're not getting value out of the old project anymore. Maybe one smaller final push. And now you're all into the new thing. That's how I would handle that.
That is exactly how I've handled it at previous companies. Exactly it. We drew the line in the sand and said, all the old stuff is fine. And as it slowly dies, it slowly gets replaced, but all new stuff goes in the new world.
I think the important thing there really is the line in the sand and
Agreed.
getting everyone on board, because you're going to have a lot of testers and a lot of engineers, and some of them are going to be more conservative.
Yes.
And I think it's really important for the collective management, someone to say, no, you know what? It's not allowed to check in new code in the old tool anymore. You're going with the new one, period. I know you love your old tool, but we're going with the new one. Here, line and sand, drawn. Otherwise, it's very, it's easy for some people to stick with the old one, and it keeps growing, and they add small additions, and they make it better. No, just let it die a slow death over time.
Yes, I have nothing else to add. I had also that same exact experience in one of the company that I worked for, where a little bit different though than your question. We had to move on from an older tool that was an open source to a newer one that was a commercial tool. We did exactly that. We had to sit down together and discuss where is that line that everybody's talking about. Because if you let it go as it is, the old one will always be there. So it's very important to create that communication with your team so everybody understands that we're trying to transition to a newer type of, automation or whatever it is at this point.
And this is really the tricky part.
Yeah.
We can do technology. It's no problem. We've done it before. Change management, introducing new things, communicating with the organization, getting buy-in. This is the hard stuff. Jerry Weinberg has a famous saying, software development is a social activity. And what he means by that is, yes, we can do technology. We've done it for a long time. We'll figure it out. The hard part is working with human beings, colleagues, making sure that we don't have a tribe of the old automation tool and they really refuse change, and then having another one that are really pissed off with the old tribe. Getting that change. This is the hard stuff. This is also one of the things where I think that we testers are ideally placed as communicators, as understanding other people, to be part of that change in organizations.
So I have to challenge this from a different perspective. I think it also comes down to how much you're paying for that tool. Because if you don't have a lot of tests, or you have a certain small set of tests, and you hire a team that is willing, and they're like, enable, and they said, we can replace this in under a month. We can write it, get everything coverage. Then I'm going to do a month and call it in the sand, replace everything and go. Because if that commercial tool or that no-load code tool is costing me $10,000, $15,000 a month, or even $2,000 a month, is that really worth just drawing a line in the sand, keeping it going, paying for those licenses while you slowly try and replace it? So I think you also have to look at some of the budget behind it.
Absolutely. And that's
Correct.
part of that conversation on drawing the line in the sand, right? 'Cause
Yep.
the line in the sand literally might be, it's done.
Yep.
We'll migrate everything, right? So I think we're all in the same agreement, the
Yes.
sand. The budget also rolls into that line and drawing of the line. Because you're right. Keeping something around, you still have to pay for it. There is a cost.
Correct.
A gentleman back here?
Yeah, so I'm just coming here to see if there's some suggestion on some of the good tool, automation tool out there that we can help us. Because I think very often if we talk about the general, but if we have some specific tools that we get a few that easy to maintain and easy to develop.
Probably the first vendor you talk with out there.
Yeah. Every vendor out there will tell you.
They're the best.
What
Oh,
tech
repeat the
stack you
question.
deal with the most?
So yeah, I guess that's the best way for us to do it. Yeah, because
Do
I
you mind
mean,
repeating the question, Chris, for the audience?
Repeat the question.
Thank you.
What testing tool is the best?
Good.
that
Any
any
suggestions?
suggestion? Oh, I have lots of suggestions. It's a loaded question. There is no such thing as the best tool, the right tool, the correct tool. I'll preface this with, you need to find the one that fits you, your organization, your product, all of that. You need to spend the time to find the right one for you, the correct one for you, the best one for you. To ask which one is the best is like asking me which one's the best car. I'm pretty sure we'll all have a different agreement on that too.
Yeah.
Volkswagen Beetle.
And it goes out also with what. See?
Yeah.
I always give an example when I get that question, and I reverse it with, what's the best cooking tool? It all depends on what you're trying to cook
Mhm.
and what is
Yes,
the situation,
that's a
what
great way to
kitchen
put
are
it.
you at. There's no like, yeah, you get the spatula, and I dare you to prepare soup with a spatula. So, sorry, I had
Yep,
to
no,
jump
I
in.
agree. That's a
I
great,
don't know.
that's
Have
a
you
great
seen
way
a
to put it.
spork? That's kind of an
But
awesome
It's
thing.
it's actually
But as Janice said, it's not a bad idea for us to share our current tech stacks at least. Mine is a homegrown, custom-built automation framework using C#, Selenium, REST, and soon Appium.
I'm a hardcore Selenium believer, so I love Selenium, and especially the latest version is becoming even better and better
Yes.
every time. So Selenium to me, but I wanted to just say one thing about, yes, the need is important, but just like Jen said, the budget, you have to have that communication again, understanding what you are working with. Are we going to go with an open source or a commercial one? Or, sky is the limit at this point. You cannot say, okay, just go with Selenium because I love it, right? It wouldn't be fair for you to say something like that, because I'm biased. I love Selenium. I've tried Cypress. I've tried other ones. It's just my experience. But again, the needs of my companies in the past were, geared towards using Selenium as an open source. But again, money, time, effort, all that needs to be taken into consideration when you discuss with your team which one is the best. So
Andy?
When I was a developer advocate, I had to give the politically correct answer of all the tools are great. Yeah. I'm no longer a developer advocate. So I'm going to drop some hot opinions. These are all me, personal perspective, the things I like. To qualify, what tech stack do I do? All of them. It's bad. We can talk about it afterwards, but I have touched way too many things, and my perspective is blurry.
That sounds like an HR violation to me. Sorry, go on.
That was good. That was good. All right. So my favorite programming language is Python. That's no secret. I think PyTest is the best core test framework that is open source out there amongst any language. Why? It has incredible extensibility. It has tests as functions rather than test classes. I hate XUnit style frameworks. I think we were trying to shoehorn object-oriented programming into the format of a class and call it a test, and we screwed up. So PyTest is amazing. Therefore, I'm very partial to all the Python-based tools. That's not to say other tools aren't great. They're okay, but if I get to choose, I choose that. Web testing, Playwright, all day, every day. Yes, I like it better than Selenium and Cypress. Fight me. Visual testing, I think Applitools is the best because they have the best matching historically. They were one of the first to actually do visual AI. And yes, I even worked at Applitools, but I actually got to play with the others, and Applitools, I think, is the best there. Test case repositories like management solutions, they're all garbage that I've seen. Straight up. I don't like any of them. Shut the door. Don't let the vendors hear it. What else? Mobile testing. I haven't done a whole lot of mobile testing, but it's painful. Am I right?
Yeah.
There is no good tool. We haven't arrived yet. And I think we don't do as much mobile testing as we should because the tech stack itself is difficult. Like I needed to install 30 gigabytes of like Android Studio stuff just to get a app running on my machine, let alone before I could even inspect with some really janky inspector to even figure out locators to how to write a test in Appium for it. So that's a whole project. If you can solve the mobile testing problem, maybe we'll do better there. What other spaces? Locust is cool for load testing. Again, that's in the Python world. Have I missed anything?
Accessibility testing.
I haven't done a whole lot of that. It's one area that I'm weak on. I don't want to spout opinions on what I don't know. BDD. Best BDD framework is SpecFlow. Hands down. SpecFlow is the bomb. That's C#.net. I like SpecFlow better than PyTest BDD. And PyTest being the Python thing. I think SpecFlow is the best. So those are my hot, spicy Andy takes. Take notes, fight me afterwards, but this is my story and I'm sticking to it.
I'll meet you behind the Mickey. Another HR violation. Christopher, you like to share your tech stack?
Yeah, currently I'm working in a company where I'm running the backend team. So we build our backend on Python and Django. Exactly. Most of our tests are unit tests by my developers. That we really follow the whole test pyramid. There's a bulk of those because it works really great. We have lots of API tests that we use, that we run as well via Django Runner. And then on top, what most people in here are more interested in probably is I'm currently running on a Suppress stack. So I built up a suite of smoke tests about, functional tests, etc. But I'm trying desperately to keep that as small as I can, because my developers are awesome at doing a lot of the automation tests. And then I just add the final pieces so I can more focus on exploratory testing and testing their functionality every week rather than slog through that smoke test and I want to have a confidence in mind. This being said, though, I've been using Suppress now for over 5-6 years, something like that, and I'm finding it's coming to an end for me. It was awesome when it came, but it is being replaced by Playwright. It's the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
It solves a lot of the problems that Suppress have in terms of performance. My developers, we're dying because our regression test suite takes way too long whenever we check something into GitHub and we need to wait for it to finish. And it's gotten to the point where my architect confesses that sometimes if he rebased and he knows everything is good, he makes a risk call and I'll merge it anyway before those those suppresses. Yeah, I know. I get the same reaction, but waiting 25 minutes for everything to run through, I see where it's coming from. So my project is to migrate everything we can into Playwright. I'm going to draw the line in the sand at some point, and we're going to do that as a collective team, because I don't want to be the only one who have implemented that framework, that solution. I don't want to be the only one who knows about the page objects and how it works. I want my developers to be in on this. We'll do that as a joint exercise.
And for you guys in Playwright and loving your Playwright, just remember Protractor was there once too.
Uh-huh.
Once.
And Selenium
Was.
still stands.
Thank you. There we go.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
Taylor.
I have a question on requirements, and if you write your test automation specifically on requirements, and then what if you get like a user story that doesn't have requirements?
All right.
I guess I should repeat that.
Yes.
Do we write it? And please correct me if I get this wrong. For our automation, is our automation tied to development requirements? Tightly? Mine is not. I'm helping my team to dig out from a mountain of regression that has nothing to do with new features.
Same
Yeah.
here. When I worked in the last company that I've worked with, it's not. We have a lot of requirements that are just specific to how we want to test. So team right here.
Yeah, a lot of projects I've worked on, it's been yes and no. I've been in the case where you've got this mountain of regression you're trying to burn through just to get something in place. I've been at where you're actually writing tests and doing testing in sprint as they're popping out new features. I don't know. I feel like the word requirement feels old-fashioned to me. In a lot of the environments I've worked have been more agile, been more behavior-driven, where we're kind of talking about the things and exploring the behaviors and figuring them out together. And so it's not that there was some power from on high that gave us XYZ 1, 2, 3 bullet number with the hyperlinks and some very, very obvious business language of here's what you need to build into the product. And, we have to market test to that. It's more of, so we want to build an app to enable people to order bubble tea on the go. Should we have like a favorites menu pop up first, or should we have a tea where it's either they can build their own or see what other people have like those? I guess you could call it, I wouldn't call those requirements per se. It's more of like a exploration, a discovery. It's a good word to use, a discovery that we as the team feel empowered with our three amigos biz dev test to decide what we're going to build that has value for the user.
Well, for me, the situation is quite easy at this point. Let me give you the background first. My role in my current team is adult person in the room. Yes, that is literally my job title. So
I think you are
job
here
title
too.
is to do everything that my developers and architects don't want to do. That means that I am in the unique position, and I'm finding it to be really good, where I talk with our end users. I understand their needs. I understand what they need, when they need it. I talk with the organization. Then I have the privilege of actually writing our user stories, aka our requirements. We don't have requirements documents. We don't do it that old-fashioned way.
No.
We write GitHub tickets, but I make darn sure that they are well specified. You know, what they're supposed to do, expected behavior. I do mock-ups. I spend a lot of time in Inkscape drawing graphical user interfaces. And this not only enables my developers, who are very happy about getting these very detailed tickets, how it's supposed to work, even how it's supposed to look, so they don't need to invent the UI. When it comes full end, and I get it as the tester, I wrote the darn thing. I understand the end users. I've talked with them. I know their pain points. And I also know, oh, do we need this for the spring 2024 semester in January when it's supposed to work? I'm kind of like all over the place. I'm touching too many things, like Andrew said.
Uh-oh. Call HR.
Yeah, but it really enables me to quickly and easily pick up those stories that have been implemented. And we testers, we've been complaining about this for years and years. We said, please involve us early in the process. How hard is it, Mr. Requirement Person, to invite me to the meeting? I don't need to do that because I'm writing the tickets myself. And that also allows me, of course, to write automation where I see it's needed. Most of the time, like I said, those are unit tests and API tests for my developers, but I do add to our smoke test suite and our regression test suite as well from time to time. Testers are awesome at all kind of different roles. Any organization who starts realizing that would be ever so lucky. We can do more than just testing. We have potential to take on other roles if we so choose to and if we want to. Testers are really versatile.
And if they pay us to do it.
Always about the money. Yes, sir.
I wanted to get your take on how to manage like project management for testing, because on my team, a lot of times what happens is, I know this is more of like an agile question, I guess, but like I get put on a story to do QA work for it, and then when we're creating test cases, if I find I need to add an automated test, a lot of times they're not done with the developer that's working on the feature isn't done until towards the end of the sprint. And then I need to either in one day come up with like complete the test and make sure that it's working correctly, or the story gets split and we have to do, I have for another iteration. And so I was curious how you guys handle that kind of problem.
So the question is, how do we handle in sprint automation where we're, as the automation folks, always getting it at the last minute, right? Been there many, many times. What we finally decided is we stopped. We live a sprint or two behind. We can't keep up because you're right. Johnny developer will give it to me at 3 p.m. on the very last day, and somehow I have to have it done before the end of the sprint. It just wasn't fair to my team. So we just finally, again, drew that line in the sand and said, we can't. Some we can. If we can, if it's done early in the sprint, we'll do it. But for the most part, we're a sprint or two behind. We just had to because it wasn't fair. And sometimes we'd automate it and the feature would change in the next sprint. So anything we'd automated is now garbage and throwaway. So we find that if we stay a sprint or two behind, it's usually a little more mature by the time we get it. How do you handle that, folks?
We have a different benefit in my team in the sense that, sure, we have what we call decks. Those are monthly decks, you know, where, again, I'm the one sorting through the priorities. I'm adding the tickets and what we're supposed to do. But that really doesn't dictate, well, it dictates what we should do in what order. But what we work with in my team is that we nowadays, we do weekly releases. And if something is done, it gets released. If it's not done, and by done, I mean implemented, tested, acceptance tested, and we feel that it has enough quality, then we'll just push it to the next week. The benefit of moving towards these weekly releases and more of a Kanban style way of working rather than sprints is that our customers no longer freak out when we say that, oh, we missed the release windows, because they know that, it's okay. It's going to be part of next week's release. And we have built our CI/CD pipeline and everything, all our processes, how we work, to the point where we can push a button and do some manual work, and we can get a release out whatever day we want to. So there are times when we miss a release window, and we just say, no, we can't do that. But you know what? It's Wednesday today. By definition, we probably won't get it done on Thursday. We never, ever release on Fridays. That's a hard no. So, but we can have it out on Monday for you. And having that flexibility, having that conversation with our end users allows us to ship stuff in a continuous flow, and it allows us to work in an agile, consistent way that don't burn us out over time.
So I'm going to piggyback on that one. The latest project that I've worked with, we started as a 2-week sprint, Scrum, full Scrum, Agile. Things were becoming, just like you said, hectic. We were so behind. Our regression test would be, 2-3 sprints behind because of the fact that, like you said, developers would just give it to us last second. So since it was becoming a very big problem, the team decided to switch from Scrum to Kanban. Having that switch really made a huge difference because we were not tied up by time anymore. We were more of, okay, you got it, you're there, let's start with the automation. But again, you have to understand that you have to be involved with, the requirements or, user stories, whatever you are in, as soon as, as early as possible, because when you start as early as possible, you already know what you're going to be automating and what you're not going to be automating. So that switch from Scrum to Kanban helped us tremendously.
Can
So
I just
that might
add
help.
one thing?
Sure.
I don't know if you're embedded in your team working with your developers or if you're outside, but even if you're in the team and you're waiting for that handoff from the developer at the very last minute, I still think that you're not a team at that point. You as a tester is a mini team within
Exactly.
that team, and we still have those old walls in between. So what I do with my developers is that I encourage them to give me their PR and push their code as soon as possible. It may not be 100% done, and I tell them, that is fine. Just write to me instructions, tell me, hey, Christopher, I want you to focus on this area here. This one here might be a little bit wonky, and I haven't gotten to this one yet. That way, I can do a lot of intensive exploratory testing early on as they are developing with it. There's a trade-off point, of course, I can't pick it up too soon or it would waste my time, but simply moving from that binary 1 and 0, it's done, hence I'm handing it over to the tester, to a more collaborative effort, and I can give them feedback and we can talk about it. It just makes a whole lot of difference. And at the end, yeah, maybe I'll smack on a few automation tests, but at least I've done all the, I've explored the product, I found all the bugs.
Yeah, and one more thing, sorry, Andrew. Understanding that Agile is not just Scrum, it's a whole, it's a whole umbrella that you can, figure out what would work for your team. A lot of people think of Agile as just Scrum. Yes, you have that time, you have that rigidity, you have, it's to me, it's really rigid, actually, Scrum. And I like it as a startup. Maybe if you start as, okay, we want to be agile, let's keep it very structured. But at the same time, it really ties your whole entire team up, because if things don't work, we're like, okay, now what? What do we do? So having, again, conversation with the team on, okay, we want to start as a Scrum, but maybe it's not going to work forever. Okay, let's switch. Having that flexibility, and Agile is all about flexibility. Okay, so I just want to just say that Agile is not just Scrum.
It's
I'm sorry,
almost
Christopher.
humorous.
We got to give Andy a chance.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Andy.
I just wanted to quickly say I was going to jump in and flippantly answer when you asked your question. Scrap Scrum, do Kanban. And then they said it. So I'm like, okay, it's not so hot and spicy after all.
Oh, sorry.
I mean,
I kind of now regret going to you, Andy.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost ridiculous and humorous at the same time that we're standing here in 2023 now, and we're saying that Scrum is too rigid. It's too,
Isn't that
it's
crazy?
inflexible.
It is.
I was there back when we replaced waterfall with Scrum at that point, and Agile was a new thing. The amount of flexibility we got from Scrum back then was night and day. But now we're here, at least 10 to 15 years later, we're saying, you know what? That's too confined to us.
Fine, yes.
The agile coaches became the machine they raged against.
Mm.
Because I remember
I
in the
agree.
thousands when we were going through the Scrum training that we all went through, because we had to,
Yep.
it was very clear. You must follow these rules to a T, or else you're going to be wrong and you're going to be bad and it's not going to work. Oh, you only have half a Scrum Master instead of a full Scrum Master on a team. Well, you're going to suffer and you deserve it. And now it's like 2020-ish, and people, all these same people that we spent bajillions of dollars on to come teach us and lobotomize us are like, actually, what we were saying is you should do what you want, and Scrum is a starting point. I'm like, bull crap, you did not say that. Well, here we are, so we've learned our lesson.
See, that-
We're going to try to be true Agile instead of, capital A Agile, capital S Scrum.
The only thing I ever took from Agile was the one line of do what works for your team.
Mm.
It's the only thing I use out of it.
Yep.
Let's share Jana's unpopular opinion.
You should have came here.
Just come on up.
So unpopular opinion is we absolutely have no problems fitting in all of our test automation within a sprint because we don't have any testers and the developers write all of their automation.
Oh.
And we don't do any regression testing within a sprint because we focus on our time to deliver code and release code. And if a bug makes it out into production, we can have it fixed in 15 to 20 minutes at most. So it doesn't necessarily matter if we're running regression before it goes out because we can fix it so fast.
So continuous. I love it.
I love
Absolutely.
that. So that's my unpopular.
No, it's not unpopular. The better
No.
development practices you have, the better CI/CD flow you have, the easier you have it to make a release, the less you need all these other extra safety harnesses around it.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I think we are just about out of time, and judging by the number of people who are leaving out the back of the room, either we've upset them or it's over. Or Jana upset them.
I think
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
her.
Jana.
So
Yeah.
I think we'll call it there. I will thank my fellow panelists. Much appreciated. This was great. Thank you for your awesome questions. And we'll see you all at Star East, where we get to do it again.
Yay.
Heck yes.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, yes, and please rate the session. Scan that thing and rate this session, please.
It was the best.
They're gonna rate. It was great, except for that lady in
That
front.
one lady
kept
up
asking questions.
Her.